we're back. Part two of the week of nuttiness from my stories from the law firm. So as I was leaving off in the last episode, this is now part two, I was explaining the everyday occurrence of crazy clients, completely unreasonable, acting erratic, and really just trying to do emotional drive-bys on me or my staff. And if you'll recall a couple of podcasts ago, what I was mentioning was people are really getting stirred up with all the craziness going on in the news these days. And a lot of people, whether they know it or not, are absorbing all of that. And you don't have to be hardcore empath for that to happen. Everybody has the ability to absorb in them. Animals, bugs, humans, everybody. Just so happens some people are more sensitive than others. But everybody's absorbing it. And a lot of people are absorbing that negativity, but they need somewhere to crap it out on, or someone. And I've noticed, I'm sure they do it in their own families, but generally the way our firm works is we're very nice to people, and we're also working for free. So some people get it in their heads that they're almost like our boss, even though if they were actually paying us out of their pocket, they couldn't afford us. So it creates an interesting dynamic. So where I left off last time was going through how every day that past week, something or somebody was acting crazy. And I was discussing each of these stories and what I did to preempt being dumped on by the crazies. And what we left off on was a lady who was an attorney whose case we were handling, and who just like out of the blue, after we bent over backwards for her, decided to like just come out guns blazing on one of my employees, calling her a liar, and what's worse, doing it in the front of everybody by CCing everybody in my firm. And it was just so uncalled for. But I've noticed something almost like clockwork, and that is the people you help the most and bend over backwards for the most are the people that not only appreciate it the least, but are the people that abuse you the most. And it's tricky, but you really have to figure out at what point do you just drop a case versus just hanging on to it, especially if you're an attorney or you're in the professional services industry. Let's say you're an accountant and you have a troublesome client. What I have found is your gut is usually right. Your body and your mind are able to process a gazillion things that you're not even aware of. So when you're getting some bad vibes, you should listen to it. I understand everybody needs money and you're building a practice or you're building a business, and you may think, well, hey, let me just muscle through this for the payday. Honestly, like even when I was in law school, I heard this from other attorneys, and that is the best clients that attorneys have ever had are the ones they didn't take. And it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek humor in the legal industry to say that the best decisions they made were turning down people, because these things can be such a headache. And the clients can be ruthless to the point where there's really no point, because one bad client can literally ruin your career if you're not very careful. Your client can become your enemy. Your client can end up suing you. And what's even funnier about that whole thing inside of the paradigm of personal injury is, imagine you're slaving away on somebody's case. You're working for free up until you get paid. So you're basically putting in all these hours and spending money on this other person's case because you have to pay your staff. And something goes wrong, or they think something doesn't go right, and next thing you know, they're coming after you. And it's such a messed up dynamic, but that's what it is. So here we are, and where I left off last time was going to give you another example of some craziness and some of the, how shall we say, triumphs, if you will, in my career. And so after we had these first couple of crazies, lo and behold, Wednesday comes around. Or is it Thursday? Whatever, one of the two. Oh, no. I got emailed on Wednesday by the father of this young girl. And it's, as you're probably noticing a trend, it'll often be a family member mad about the case on behalf of the actual client. And this has been happening so much to the point where now I passed a new rule where when a family member wants to run point on the actual client's case, we basically say no. The actual client has to be in touch with us, and that's just what it is. Because what we found is, and it's so stupid, we'd have like moms and dads, sometimes sons, completely impossible to deal with. Meanwhile, the actual client would be super nice, super cooperative, and it's like, well, why are we subjecting us to two different people when we only have one client? And the person that's mad isn't even the client. So we just cut that off. And if, like I've said before, if they don't like that, they can leave. Usually the client has no problem with it. The people that have a problem with it are often the people that want to meddle in the case. And that's not my problem. Not anymore anyway. So the most recent example is a girl who was referred to me by her dad. Her dad was a client of mine many years ago. And he had referred her over for a personal injury case. She was in a car accident. And, I have complete faith in my staff. We keep detailed notes. We track everything. And lo and behold, about, I'm going to say a year ago, the father asks to speak to me out of the blue. And I hadn't heard from him after he had referred his daughter over. And so I'm like, hey, I'll just call him, let's call him Jim. So I'm like, hey, Jim, what's up? And we have a very cordial relationship. And he was just complaining about how, well, according to his daughter, who was the actual client, nobody was ever returning her calls. Nobody was following up with her for her treatment, anything. And to me, that sounded completely perplexing because at my other firm, I don't really have a high case volume. Not that that would matter, but you'll understand why I'm saying that in a moment. We don't have a high case volume, so our cases get a lot of attention paid to them, meaning things don't get lost in the shuffle. Because remember, we don't get paid until we actually execute and finalize the case. So why on earth would I just sit on somebody's case? Now, he wasn't complaining to me, or about me rather. He was complaining about my staff not returning the calls to his daughter, which made no sense to me, especially when it's a referral or an old client. I'm always taking extra good care of them. And I told him, I said, there must be some mistake. My staff is most certainly on top of your daughter's case. And he pushed back, which kind of surprised me. He's like, nope, I talked to my daughter, definitely nobody's calling her back, this, that, and the other. I didn't bother apologizing because I needed to investigate first. I told the guy that, look, I'll talk to your daughter myself, and I even talked to the daughter later saying, hey, I've got this, just email me and I'll handle it. Because I don't want to lose a client. And I don't want to lose a relationship either. So I specifically said, I'll be your point of contact. I'll make sure everything gets pushed through. I borderline almost accepted that maybe it did fall through the cracks, even though I didn't acknowledge that to them on the phone. Now, what's funny is I end up going, talking to my office, and we go through all the notes, and they know exactly who I'm talking about. And the irony is it's the girl who wasn't returning our correspondence. We had been begging her for medical records. She wasn't giving them to us. We had been asking her for information on if she wanted additional treatment, wasn't responding to phone calls or emails. And I thought it was really rich that now the argument is that, according to what she's telling her dad, we're the ones not responding to her. And so I just let it be. Something didn't add up. I'm going to always take the side of my staff because we keep detailed notes. I mean, nobody's entering a fake note about trying to contact somebody. And so, I just, instead of calling back and getting into an argument, because the dad was always going to believe his daughter, that's his role, I just took on the case and we pushed it forward. What ends up happening? The daughter continues to not be responsive. Based on a few parameters of the case, even though it's not easy to do, I was still able to successfully prosecute the case and obtain the full value available of the case, despite the fact that the individual wasn't cooperating with us. So that alone is not a miracle, but it's very hard to do when somebody's not. It's like having a patient and you're asking the patient what's wrong and the patient's refusing to tell you, and you as a doctor have to figure it out. So, clearly this was now definitely falling on the client, even though I kind of apologized to her in terms of, well, we'll be better and things like that. I know I said I didn't acknowledge that we had any fault, but I still told her that I'm going to handle it so there wouldn't be anything falling through the cracks in case that had happened. So anyhow, Now, fast forward a year to right around now, we finish her case, and then the case gets held up because she had chosen a medical provider that's a family friend. Now, without getting too detailed, normally if somebody uses one of the medical providers that we work with, it's very easy for us to pick up the phone, negotiate the medical bills down, and every dollar we save goes straight to the client, which helps them. It's for their benefit. Because this individual had chosen their own medical provider, in this case, I believe it was a chiropractor. Can't recall. I think it was a chiropractor. What often happens is these family friendships don't actually help because they often want to take advantage of the situation, meaning they think, excuse me, they think they can get more money because it's somebody, a current client of theirs. They think they can get away with not reducing their medical bills as much to squeeze more money out of the people, which is a no-no. I mean, that's not how this game works. They're supposed to negotiate. But that's what happened. These people, the client and the dad had chosen their own friend to do the medical work. And now that it was time to pay out everybody, the medical provider was not responding to us. And when they finally responded to us, they wanted almost 100% of their bill paid back. Now, I don't expect you to understand personal injury and how it works, but in a nutshell, when you get treatment, let's say you have a $5,000 chiropractic bill, I'm just making that number up. Often, if the settlement comes in at a lower amount than planned or whatever, there's not a lot of money available, we always call the chiropractor up and say, hey, can you reduce your bill from $5,000 to, let's say, $3,000? The chiropractor will always reduce their bill if they understand this game of personal injury. Now, and all that difference in savings goes 100% back to the client. Now, what was interesting here was this chiropractor wouldn't return our calls, and when he did, he basically wanted to be paid back in full, which was ridiculous, right? And now more headaches because now we have to go back and forth with the guy, even though he's very slow in responding. It holds things up even a little bit longer, even though we had settled the case. Well, I write the checks, everything gets sent out. Just like perfect clockwork, the father sends me a random email. Hey, do you have time to talk this week? I already know what's going to happen. So, and he caught me in the perfect week too, because I'm like, great, let's knock all these people out, right? I was already on guard. So I said, yeah, absolutely. But first of all, and I emailed him, I'm like, do you want to talk about, is it something to do with your daughter's case? Because if it is, I want my paralegals there, unlike last time. Because that's how I got caught off guard last time, because he was just calling me directly and I didn't have the people actually working on the case behind me with the details and the notes with me during the conversation. I just took him at his word. So he said, yeah, he said, yeah, it is about my daughter's case. I'll make sure she's on the call too. And I said, great, I'll be available on Thursday. Of course, he thought he was going to call me that day. Nope. I pushed it to a couple days later when my staff would be with me. And I also said, yeah, we can talk on Thursday. And by the way, I went through your daughter's case and everything was done perfectly. And I was doing that on purpose to set him up, to let him know that if he's calling to complain about something now, I'm going to push back. And so lo and behold, let a couple days pass. And on Thursday, I give him a call. We exchanged pleasantries. You know, his daughter, the quiet one, I'm sure she was on the line in the background. I never heard a peep out of her. But I was there with both of my paralegals who had slaved away at the case. Now, the people that work for me are not your average people. They have incredible memories and pay incredible attention to detail, and we keep very meticulous notes. So it's interesting when somebody doesn't have any information, but they're just going by what their kid told them, who's going through whatever they're going through. And it's like an asymmetrical warfare, right? And whoops, he picked the right day to do that. So he was complaining that, well, you know, we got the check, but there's no breakdown with it. And I said, oh, that's unusual, because we always send a breakdown where all the money was distributed prior to sending out the check. Not only that, we make sure that the client signs it. And it's not necessary, but we do it. So everything's transparent. So my paralegal is busy on her computer. I'm like, okay, hang on, Jim. We're going to look it up. So, 10, 20 seconds pass of her going through the file, looking it up. And you could tell it was like this dam that was about to burst. He's like, all of a sudden he went from nice Jim to, I'm going to start unleashing on you guys. He's like, you see, this is the problem. And right away, before he can even get 3 more words out of his mouth, I just start talking over him. I said, there is no problem. I said, we keep it to meticulous notes. I said, and then I just started going off on him. I said, it sounds like you called us today just to vent, even though we worked on your daughter's case relentlessly and everything was done perfectly. I said, you haven't even given us a minute to look up the settlement breakdown that usually goes out with the check. And you're already complaining. And then he's like, you guys, don't return the calls. You're not responsive. And I said, great. I said, hold that thought. And I said, Rocio, come in here. Rocio's my other paralegal. And she was the one that had made most of the calls. And she has an incredible memory. She comes in and she's super nice, right? And I'm like, Rocio, would you mind giving Jim a synopsis of this whole case? And without even having to refer to a note, she just rattled everything out from start to finish without even taking a breath. She's like, she started here, went there. We needed to do this, that, and the other. We called her these dates. She never called us back. We had to work around that. You guys complained. We kept going. Then she was uncooperative with getting additional treatment. She refused to give us the paperwork we needed, would not return our emails. And she was even citing dates or approximate dates from memory. And she basically spoke for about 2 or 3 minutes like a machine gun, rattling off the case from start to finish. And I was just sitting there. We're on speakerphone with him. And I was just watching her talk and explain all the nuances of the case and how detailed she was relative to how unresponsive the daughter actually was. This is dating back to last year when he had bitched about it. And like at the end of the conversation, at the end of when she was finally done, which completely threw the daughter under the bus in terms of the whole time it was the daughter that was unresponsive to us. The funny part is I concluded everything by saying, well, there you go. It looks like we did contact her. I said, I have notes here. So I said the accusation that we weren't on top of your daughter's case last year wasn't only incorrect, it was an absolute lie. And nobody wants to hear their daughter being called a liar. But hey, if you're lying, you're lying. And I just left it at that. And you know what he said? All he said was, and me and my paralegal were just looking at each other, and I was just like, I gave her a high five because I'm like, that's what you get. I don't know what's going on in your personal life, but this isn't the place for you to take a shit on because you had a bad day. Sorry, your daughter's a liar, but here we are, and I'm not gonna stand here and take it from you while you're just being lied to because your daughter's too busy to actually return phone calls and then turn around and accuse us of not doing this, what she's actually doing. So then he kind of confessed that, well, when did you guys call again? Like with my daughter? And we were like, yeah, it was around these dates. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, my mom, meaning her grandmother, died and we're really going through a hard time. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but that's around the time you were accusing us of not returning your daughter's calls. So please explain to me how that's our fault. So you're acknowledging that she wasn't calling us back? Because before we weren't the ones calling you. So anyhow, then it moved on to the chiropractor. He's like, yeah, our chiropractor said that you guys don't return his calls. And I'm like, let me stop you right there. Your chiropractor is a pile of crap. And please tell him I told you to say that. Because actually your chiropractor, who you think is your friend, has been trying to get as much money from you as possible, or your daughter. And I explained to him how we'd been fighting with the chiropractor, and it was him that wasn't responding to us. So I said, your friend, who's your chiropractor, sucks, and he's been delaying your case unnecessarily on top of everything. Suffice it to say, when the conversation was over, it wasn't, hey, have a great day. It was just a simple bye, because that's what it is. You have to set boundaries. And I think I completely threw him off because when I had met him and his wife, I don't know, 15, 14 years ago, I was a younger attorney, happy to try to make people please everybody, even these clients that weren't paying me very much. I was bending over backwards and I was the people pleaser. And he probably remembered me as such. And whatever is going on in his personal life, maybe now this is like, hey, let's go crap on the guy that we know is always nice to us. Not today, and not this day. And so it felt amazing, especially given how that week had been going where I had to go off on people. Now, I always say, one thing I hate about it is it's such a waste of energy because nothing better happened, right? I didn't make more money. I didn't get a happier client. But I will say there's like the little boy in me was very happy about the things that happened this week because I felt like I was standing up to bullies or paper bullies or wannabe bullies, right? I was kicking them back in the nuts, and like every bully, they just run away wincing or crying foul. And so that felt great, but ultimately it's a net energy loss. And so it's important that even when you go through these things, you make sure to do something to recapture your energy or to balance yourself out. Whether you need to just go to a coffee shop and get your favorite drink, or go a weekend somewhere, like, I don't know, somewhere out of town for a couple of days, that's worth it. But if I want to leave you with one thing, it's using your perception to know what's going to happen. And that's why I don't really take phone calls like I used to. I want to plan for them so I know exactly or have a good idea what the client's calling about so that I can preempt it and be able to defend myself if needed, or fall on the sword if we screwed something up, which usually is not the case. But in this crazy world with all the tension out there in society right now, for just reason, people want an outlet. And that's fine, but don't let you be the outlet. Never let yourself be the outlet. You know, people need to find their own therapy, and especially when you're in the professional industry, there's this weird dynamic where a lot of people think somehow you're under their control, when it's not the case. I mean, ultimately they came to you as the professional to do something they had no clue how to do. That doesn't mean they can now boss you around, and it doesn't mean they can take out their crappy marriage on you, or the relationship with their boyfriend or girlfriend on you. I've had that happen too. I once had, this is like way back when I was first starting, I got this angry call from this guy's wife who was filing bankruptcy. The guy was filing bankruptcy, not his wife. On the weekend, I was driving up to Monterey, and the wife calls me. And back then I was answering my phone all the time, right? Because I was like, I don't want to miss a call. And I remember the girlfriend just started yelling at me on the phone, because of you, we're going to get a divorce. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, huh? Your husband came to me to do a bankruptcy case, which I haven't even worked on yet. And you're calling me on a Saturday morning to yell at me about your crappy marital problems? Like I have anything to do with it? I hate to say this, for the first time in my life, I don't yell. I'm not a yeller. For the first time in my life, I think I yelled at her. And I was in the car with 3 or 4 other people as we were driving on this road trip. And it was a weird situation because one of the girls driving said she got turned on by me yelling, which I don't know what that was all about. But everybody else in the car was stunned, and I was stunned because I was like, you know, where did that come from? From me? How was somebody able to like draw this out of me? Because I'm not a yeller. And I just realized that people just do this shit to, you know, they try to crap on you. So that's my lesson for you. I hope you can take something out of this as a professional, meaning when you're dealing with clients who want to exert some negativity on you, or anybody for that matter, make sure to cut them off before they can get going with their argument. So you're limiting what you're absorbing, and you're shutting them down, and you're setting a boundary saying, no, that's not for me, and you can't do that with me. And it works every time. I haven't had it not work a single time. So that's what I want to leave you with. More stories to come. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. And hey, I'll see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get daily updates. Or also don't forget to check out the blog, Internatianil.com. So that's spelled Internatianil.com. Thank you.